And now we come to my defensive superlatives of my Saturday superlatives. And there was a festival of pick sixes. And what's better than a pick six? It's beautiful. And some were especially beautiful. Bryce Thompson had a luscious pick six. Tennessee's defense, which we all expected at some point to look good, is starting to round to form. Jeremy Pruitt might be sort of saving the bacon there, but he had 2 solo tackles, and of course, like I said, a luscious pick six. He's a player on the rise. Zeke Brown, the cornerback from Baylor, and once again, Baylor's defense has been up and down, but he's one of the best players on that defense, in my opinion. He had an interception, a touchdown-saving interception. It was in the end zone, and he had to fight for it, but he got it, and he showed you, all those jokes about you play corner because you couldn't play wide receiver. He could play wide receiver. He has great hands, great concentration. Also had 2 solo tackles and was really, provided some great coverage throughout that game. LSU, speaking of amazing pick sixes, Elias Ricks, a couple solo tackles, a pick six. He ran back 68 yards, which when you look at the way the game turned out, contributed obviously to the win. I mean, any pick six does, but that one especially in such a tight game, and a game where LSU really had to overcome the belief that they were facing a team that was far superior, and they didn't buy that. And of course, you could see that and a couple of mistakes by Florida opened the door for them. Arkansas, bad day at the office for Arkansas, but they have a few bright spots on that defense. Jalen Catalon is once again just a youngster, but he's developing. He's going to be something, and he's just a freshman. But 3 solo tackles, 7 assists, also had a pass breakup. He's going to be a really good player, and they're going to be a better defense in the future. Arizona State, once again, there was a lot of fun had by that team, but Tyler Johnson had a really good game, 2 solo tackles and a sack, and he's sort of a 5 technique type. He plays some tackle, some D-end. He's about 6'3" and 3/4, about 286 pounds, but he moves well, and once again, sort of in that Leonard Williams mold, a guy who's could play D-end in some sets, could play probably 3 technique, can play that 4-eye. In fact, 4-eye might be in his future. Moving on, Colorado unfortunately lost Nate Landsman. Landsman is a terrific player. He'll be a great pro. I'd love to see him end up in Pittsburgh. Unfortunately, he tore up his knee, and we don't know the details yet, but I'm almost certain it's bad. And his roommate and friend, Carson Wells, stepped up, had a couple of solo tackles, 4 assists, and a sack. Unfortunately, in a losing effort, but you could see, he always plays hard anyway. He's the second best linebacker, and maybe the second best defensive player. Landsman is clearly the best defensive player, in my opinion, on that Colorado team. USC has a safety who is fun to watch. And of course, I'm not going to start comparing him to Troy Polamalu because, one, that's nuts. He's not that kind of athlete, though he's a good athlete. He's not even as athletic as a guy like Isaiah Simmons. He's more like, a more athletic Dan Sorensen. Like, that's a better comparison. People are going a little bit crazy with the comparisons about Mr. Hufanga. But he's a good player. He's a really, really, really good player, and he's going to be a great player. He had an interception. He batted down a pass. He forced a fumble. He made a bunch of tackles. Super exciting. USC might run the table this year, which probably still won't get them in the playoffs because of, reasons. And, how late they started and only playing in the conference, and nobody respects the Pac-12 anymore. But that team's, and once again, people were trying to fire the coach. And, we all like firing coaches. It's fun. It's easy. But sometimes patience, right? Maybe. But yeah, Hufanga had 11 solo tackles, 6 assists, a forced fumble, an interception, just crazy nuts, and was everywhere, right? Lined up as like a rush end sometimes like a Mike linebacker, sometimes in the deep middle, sometimes deep half. He can do a little bit of everything. I don't know I think he covered tight ends. I don't know if he can cover slot receivers. I guess keep watching. Levi Sewell, the brother of Penny Sewell, had a really good game playing linebacker at Utah. Once again, a guy who's really good against the run, but can cover a little bit too. Showed some lateral ability. Showed he can fight through blocks. Good blitzer. There's a place for him somewhere in the NFL. And I've got to talk about the New Mexico defense. Rocky Long, who is a legend as a head coach, and of course has decided to return to his old stomping grounds where he used to be the head coach when Brian Urlacher was there. Now as an assistant, defensive coordinator. He's one of the best defensive coordinators on the planet. Not surprising. Great defensive mind, and that whole defense played well. Joey Noble had a couple of sacks, 2 assists, 2 solo tackles. Cameron Miller had a couple of solo tackles, a couple of assists, and 2 sacks. Ben Gonzalo, the big, well, not that big. He's got kind of an undersized nose tackle, but still a big guy, almost 200 pounds. But 2 solo tackles, an assist, a couple of sacks. I mean, all those guys had 2 sacks. I think they had something like 9 or something as a team. Like I said, Jay Hafner took a hit, but Jake Hafner took a pounding, but that kid's so tough. Riley Wimpy, Boise State, 6 solo tackles, 3 assists, and just command of the defense. You can see that he's a guy that is going to be really at home calling signals to the next level, running somebody's defense. And plowing ahead. Dimitri Washington had a really good game too, sticking with Boise State. 3 solo tackles, 6 assists, and just clogged things up in the middle. But he also can give you some push. He's never going to be a big-time sack guy. He's not Warren Sapp. He's not John Randall. No one is Aaron Donald. But he's, gives you that classic push. And I have to talk about Central Michigan's McNary. Dyshawn McNary had a really good game also. Was there in tight coverage, had 3 assists, solo tackle, but most importantly, he had a fumble recovery and an interception. Also had a pass defended, but he's one of those guys that you can tell he's got good length, he's got decent speed. I think he can play, particularly in a team that plays a fair amount of zone, but I think he has an NFL future. He'll need some time to continue to grow as a player, but in the right situation, I think you've got a starting corner. And those are my defensive superlatives. Special teams next.